Networking can be really intimidating. Hey everyone, it's Emily, the Career Catalyst, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about why you shouldn't be intimidated by networking. One of the major complaints I hear from people is that it feels like they're asking for a lot when they call someone up and ask for a networking something or the other. And what I generally recommend is that you start pretty easy. I tell people to start by asking for something like an informational interview, which is a fairly short period of time in which you ask questions about that person's career path and job and all of that kind of stuff, what it's like to work at their company, skills they have, what they recommend for someone who's trying to get into this field, etc. And the reason this isn't a big ask is this. If you imagine yourself 10 or 20 years down the line, established in your profession, feeling really good about what you do, enjoying your work, and someone called you up out of the blue and said, "Hey, I'm really interested in what you do. I'd love to learn more about it and what your career progression has been," chances are very good that you would be very happy to talk with that person. It's a really satisfying thing to do. It helps people get into a profession that they're interested in. It lets you talk about kind of your experiences. And let's admit it, it's always fun to talk about ourselves. It gives advice and information to someone who might enter a profession that you really enjoy doing. So it's a really nice thing to do. Don't feel like this is a big ask, but think of it from the other side of the equation. Now, the other thing about networking is that people, I think, can get overwhelmed with the whole process of it. What do you do? Where do you start? Why is this beneficial? And so the reason it's beneficial, I won't get into real in depth here because that's a very long conversation. But at the end of the day, what's really important here is who you know and who knows you. And so this is a really good way to get known. When you are reaching out to people for networking conversations, though, make sure that you're not hyper-focused on the decision makers at the organization, because those are often the people who aren't going to have time to speak with everyone and might even have rules that they need to follow around who they can speak with. What I always say is if you're reaching out to, say, the CFO at Amazon, chances are not great that you're going to get a response unless that's someone that you already know. But if you reach out to someone who's in a role like you would like to be in, more entry level, I'm guessing, than CFO, then you're probably going to have pretty good luck with it. So think about conversations you can have with people who are in roles that you would like to do next. Not your ultimate 15 years down the road kind of dream, but the people who are in roles that look like they can grow into really interesting things. The other thing to be aware of is that everyone is a little bit overwhelmed right now. There's a lot going on in the world still. We haven't really finished dealing with this pandemic. And so you're definitely going to notice that response times from people are a little bit slower than they traditionally might be. Don't get too discouraged if you've reached out to a couple of people and you haven't heard anything back. If it's been a week or so since you've heard from someone, I recommend following up, and you have a couple of choices there. You can either find the initial outreach you did and just follow that up, copy it into the email or whatever. Or you can use a different method of outreach. So if you emailed someone last week, dig around and see if you can find a phone number for that person and then call instead. You can do this a couple of times after your initial outreach and not feel like a giant pest. After a couple more times, then you might just leave it. And so what you can do on your third outreach is say something like, "Hey, I understand if you're really busy. Is there someone else at your organization that you would recommend I speak with?" And that's a really elegant way to acknowledge that they might not have time to talk to you, and also to put a little bit of pressure on them to connect you with someone else. So try that. And then if all else fails, the other thing that I really encourage you to do is to reach out to the administrative staff. Those front desk people can be your biggest allies in this process. So give them a call and say, "Hey, I'm really looking at getting into this field or this company," whatever it is. "And I've reached out to people A, B, and C, whoever you've talked to, and I've really been having a hard time getting anyone to respond. I wonder if you have any advice for me. Who are the best people to talk to at your company? How do they prefer to be reached out to, etc." Let those folks help you They're really kind of the gatekeepers. And so when you can keep the gatekeepers happy, you can probably get in and have some conversations with the people doing the kinds of jobs that you're interested in doing. Now, when you do a networking outreach, the other thing is you want to be very clear about what you're asking. Reaching out to someone in a way that makes it feel like you are asking for the inside scoop on a job, the secret way in, the thing that nobody else knows, or just like, please hire me, is unlikely to get a response. And so you want to be very clear that you're seeking information. That information might be specific to the company or the organization. What's it like to work there? Or it may be about the profession. Gosh, I'm really interested in what cloud security looks like, but I've never done it before. May I pick your brain about this field? How did you get here? What kind of training do you have? Those are the kinds of questions that are more likely to get a positive response from especially a stranger that you reach out to. And of course, finally, don't think that you can only speak with strangers about this. What you might do is think about who you already know and who they know and who those people might know. This is going to be potentially a non-linear way to seek information, but it's still really helpful. So for example, if you are really interested in getting into localization and you know someone who does localization but works in Vancouver and you live in Detroit, reach out to that person anyway. Say, I'm curious about localization. How much of it is really high tech and how much of it is really sort of about cultural sensitivity and language? All of the stuff you're really curious about the profession itself. And then as you wrap up that conversation, ask if that person might know someone who's closer to where you live. Or if the person has done something that's not quite what you want to do. Let's say the localization person that you speak with is very much on the tech side of things, and you're more interested in the culture side of things. Ask who else they know. This is great, and I can tell you're really good at your job, but I'm not real techie. And so I wonder if you know someone who's more on the culture side of this process. I'd love to pick that person's brain as well. Now, I always encourage people to offer the person they're speaking with, the information interviewee, as it were, a little thank you gift. So that can be a $5 coffee gift card. It can be a little $10 packet of locally made jams, whatever it is. Just a nice little thank you for their time and effort. And the other bonus of this is that it's going to really cement you in that person's brain as someone that they would really like to work with. You've demonstrated that you're kind and you're thoughtful. And that makes the people you speak with all that more likely to help you move forward in your career path. So I hope this demystifies some of the pieces of this process. It can be really exhausting and overwhelming, but it doesn't need to be so giant and so immeasurable that you can't do it. I advise people to start small, have one conversation with one person who might have some interesting information about a profession or an organization, and let it grow from there. Don't worry about setting arbitrary dates or goals for yourself. You don't need to talk to 100 people, and you don't need to talk to 7 people by the end of the month. Just kind of let it be and move forward at a pace that makes sense to you. So I hope you have a really great weekend, and I hope you will let me know if you have questions about how to network effectively. And I hope I'll see you here again next week.